Rugby union is one of the leading professional and recreational team sports in England. In 1871, the RFU was formed by 21 clubs, and the first international match, which involved England, was played in Scotland. The English national team compete annually in the Six Nations Championship, and are former world champions after winning the 2003 Rugby World Cup. The top domestic club competition is the Aviva Premiership, and English clubs also compete in international competitions such as the European Rugby Champions Cup. History. Rugby school and foundation of early clubs rugby in England is generally attributed to when William Webb Ellis, who with a fine disregard for the rules as played in his time, first took the ball in his arms and ran with it in 1823 at the rugby school, although modern scholars consider this story to be a myth. One of the earliest football clubs formed, some claim it to actually be the first, is the Guy's Hospital Football Club, which was founded in 1843 in Guy's Hospital, Southwark, London. The club played an early version of rugby football and was formed by old boys of the rugby school. Subsequent clubs established in this period include Dublin University Football Club in 1854 and the Blackheath Rugby Club in 1858. Football Association meeting and the subsequent forming of the RFU. The Football Association was formed at the Freemasons Tavern, Great Queen Street, on Lincoln's Inn Fields, London on the 26th of October 1863, with the intention to include the most acceptable points of play under the one heading of football. However, disagreements over what was being excluded led the Blackheath Club to withdraw from the association, which was followed by a number of other clubs. In 1870, Richmond F.C. published an invitation in the newspapers which read, "Those who play the rugby-type game should meet to form a code of practice as various clubs play to rules which differ from others, which makes the game difficult to play." In January of the following year, 21 clubs meet at the Pall Mall restaurant and the Rugby Football Union was founded. First International and the Schism in Rugby. On the 27th of March 1871, the first ever international match took place, involving the English rugby team and the Scottish. Scotland won the match, which was played at Raeburn Place in Edinburgh. In 1884, England opted not to join the International Rugby Football Board, which was formed by Ireland, Scotland and Wales, as they thought they should have greater representation on the board as they have the larger number of clubs. By the late 19th century, the issue over broken time in rugby had become important, particularly in the north of England, where a larger working class played rugby compared to the south. Thus the work and injuries they received whilst playing came into conflict with the rules of amateurism, with mounting pressure regarding player payments and veiled professionalism. On the 29th of August 1895, at a meeting at the George Hotel, Huddersfield, 21 clubs met to form the Northern Rugby Football Union and thus resigned from the RFU. The game of rugby league was formed from the disaffected clubs. During this period, rugby was played between counties similar to the system of first-class cricket in England now. In 1907, Cornwall won the county tournament and went on to represent Britain at rugby union at the 1908 Summer Olympics. As the system was not particularly popular, it soon ended. Twickenham and centenary celebrations. The 1910 opening of the RFU's new home at Twickenham heralded a golden era for English rugby union. During the First World War, the Four Nations Championship became suspended in 1915 and it was not resumed until 1920. 133 international players were killed during the conflict. In 1923, a century of rugby was celebrated at the Rugby School, which saw an England and Wales 15 play a Scottish-Irish team. World War II. The duration of World War II, the ban on rugby league players was temporarily lifted by the RFU. Many played in the 8 rugby internationals between England and Scotland, which were played by armed services teams. The authorities also allowed the playing of 2 rugby league versus rugby union fixtures as fundraisers for the war effort. In 1958, long after the William Webb Ellis had become engraved as a legend in the history of rugby union, his grave was finally located by Ross McQuarrie in the French town of Menton near the border with Monaco. Formation of leagues. The RFU had long resisted leagues competitions, as it was thought that they would encourage player payments. Thus most club matches were only organised friendlies, with competitions such as the County Cups and County Championship existing also. In 1972 the RFU sanctioned a knockout competition, which was revamped in 2005 into a competition for top-tier English and Welsh sides now known as the LV Cup. The league evolved over time since starting in 1987 when the Courage Leagues were formed, a league pyramid that had more than 1,000 clubs playing in 108 leagues, each with promotion and relegation. Professionalism. The Heineken Cup was formed in 1995 as a competition for 12 European clubs and ran through to the 2013-14 season, after which it was replaced by the European Rugby Champions Cup. Both competitions involve sides from England, France, Wales, Ireland, Scotland and Italy. The century-old competition for the European rugby powers became the Six Nations Championship in 2000 with the addition of Italy. In November 2008, a proposal was made and adopted by the RFU to create a fully professional second tier of club rugby, to be called the Championship. It replaced National Division 1 starting with the 2009-10 season. Governing body. The Rugby Football Union of the governing body for rugby union in England. Competitions. Aviva Premiership. The 12-team Aviva Premiership is the top level of competition. It is fully professional, but has a salary cap in place. The RFU Championship and National League, one of the next rungs down. The Championship became fully professional in 2009-10. League One is semi-professional. Below this there are many regional leagues. Attendances at club rugby in England have risen strongly since the sport went professional. Some clubs have good all-seater grounds in the 10,000–25,000 capacity range. Some have older grounds which are still partly terraced, and others play in council-owned joint-use stadia. Some clubs rent stadia from football clubs. Heineken Cup and European Rugby Champions Cup. From 1995 through to 2014, the top-level European club competition was the Heineken Cup, contested by the best teams from the Six Nations countries of England, France, Ireland, Italy, Scotland and Wales. Through its history, it was viewed by some as the top prize in European rugby for club teams. In April 2014, after 2 years of negotiations, it was confirmed that the Heineken Cup would be replaced by the new European Rugby Champions Cup beginning in the 2014-15 season. The Champions Cup includes the top 6 teams from the previous season's Premiership, with the possibility of a 7th if the 7th-placed Premiership side wins a play-off. LV Cup. The Anglo-Welsh Cup, now known for sponsorship reasons as the LV Cup, is the successor to a tournament founded in the 1971-72 season as the RFU Club competition. It was originally a national knockout competition for English club teams, and went through several sponsored names in the next quarter-century. Starting in the 2005-06 2005-06 season, it was changed into a competition for Premiership clubs plus the Welsh sides competing in the Celtic League, now Pro 12. The EDF National Trophy was founded in 2005-06 as a new knockout competition solely for English clubs, but Premiership sides do not take part. Through the 2013-14 season, the strongest Premiership teams took part in the Heineken Cup and the rest of the Premiership competed in the Amlin Challenge Cup. Since the 2014-15 season, the top Premiership sides compete in the Champions Cup, with the rest of the league involved in the new European Rugby Challenge Cup. British and Irish Cup. The British and Irish Cup is a competition founded in 2009-10 by all four home unions for lower-tier professional and semi-pro teams throughout Great Britain and Ireland. In the competition's third season it was expanded to 32 sides from its original 24. It featured all 12 teams from both the RFU Championship and the Welsh Premier Division A sides from all four Irish provinces, and the top four sides from the Scottish Premiership. The 32 teams were divided into 8 pools, each with a round-robin format. The pool winners then advanced to knockout quarter-finals, followed by semi-finals and a final. For season 2013-14 the competition returned to 24 sides with the reduction of Welsh clubs from 12 to 4. The reigning champions are Worcester Warriors, who also won the RFU Championship in 2014-15 and now compete in the Aviva Premiership. NatWest Cup. The NatWest Cup is the English Schools Rugby Union Cup competition. The final is held at Twickenham Stadium. Competitions are held at the U18 and U15 age group levels. At each age group there are 2 competitions, a cup for schools which win their opening matches, and a vase for those who lose their opening matches. Middlesex Sevens. The Middlesex Sevens is the premier club-level rugby sevens event held in England. London Sevens. National Sevens teams compete annually in the London Sevens at Twickenham, which since the 2011-12 competition has been the final event in each season's Sevens World Series. Premiership derbies. The following games are considered Premiership derbies: Midlands derbies between Northampton Saints, Leicester Tigers, Wasps and Worcester Warriors; West Country derbies between Bath, Bristol and Gloucester, and Exeter Chiefs; London derby between Harlequins and Saracens. Popularity. Participation. According to World Rugby, England has 1,900 rugby union clubs, 6,060 referees, 362,319 pre-teen male players, 698,803 teen male players, 121,480 senior male players as well as 11,000 senior female players. But these statistics are somewhat unreliable. Sport England indicates that 170,200 people play rugby at least once a week. Rugby union has often been considered, somewhat pejoratively, a posh game. This may be historically linked to the split between northern teams and the rest of the rugby fraternity over broken time payments, i.e. professionalism. This split led to the development of the separate sport of rugby league. The amateur ethos made it difficult for players who could not afford to take time off work to play away games or to go on tour, an integral part of the rugby tradition. Rugby union in many parts of England is associated with fee-paying independent schools such as Stonyhurst College or Sedbergh School, who have historically provided many of the national players. It is also commonly played at grammar schools. The comprehensive schools in much of the country tended not to play the game, although this is no longer the case. Whilst rugby union was officially an amateur sport, many rugby union players came to play rugby league. In recent years this trend has reversed and some rugby league players have crosscodes to play union, due to the split with most of the Yorkshire and Lancashire clubs. Rugby union remained more popular in the South and the Midlands than the North of England, although this trend is now nowhere near as prevalent, with many teams in the North able to field 4 or 5 senior sides per week. The Newcastle Falcons and Sale Sharks are the only northern teams in the Premiership, whereas Yorkshire Carnegie has also competed there previously. Although 4 of the teams in the Premiership have historic links with London, one of these has now moved to a neighbouring town and a second has moved to the more distant city of Coventry, and only Harlequins and Saracens now play in the capital, respectively, in the outer suburbs of Twickenham and Hendon. At an amateur level, however, rugby remains strong in the London area. Interest in the population and viewing figures. English rugby union receives extensive coverage from major media outlets. Currently BT Sport covers the majority of Aviva Premiership games. The BBC covers the Six Nations. Sky covers England's June and November internationals, and ITV covers the Rugby World Cup. BT Sport and Sky Sports share coverage of the European club competitions. The percentage of people declaring to be interested in rugby union in England has been fairly constant over the period 1996 to 2005, for which we have data. This proportion decreased slightly from 24% in 1995 to 18% before the 2003 Rugby World Cup. It jumped to 27% after England's victory over Australia in the World Cup final. In 2005, 23% of the population were declaring an interest in rugby union, placing this sport at the 6th place in England. To the question whether they watch rugby union on TV, 21% of sampled people answered positively in 2005, up 2 points relative to 1996. In this category, it places rugby union at the 2nd place in England behind football. The viewing figures for the final of the Premiership indicate that 91,000 viewers watched the 2011 final on TV when it was broadcast on ESPN for the first time. In 2010, the final was watched by 225,000 viewers on Sky. In terms of average attendance, the Aviva Premiership is the 3rd best attended club competition in England behind the top 2 association football leagues, the Premier League and the Championship. The highest club attendances at Aviva Premiership matches are starting to become similar to some of the lower attended matches in football's Championship, with game attendances averaging 12,500 in 2011 compared with 17,400 in the Football Championship. Historically, rugby union was a participatory sport rather than a spectator sport in England, and attendances at club games were low. Leicester Tigers, for example, averaged less than 100 spectators in the 1970s. However, attendances at Twickenham for the national team have always been very high. Games in the Six Nations Championship and Rugby World Cup have always been shown on network TV. Many people watch these games but don't follow club rugby, mainly due to the fact that the pay TV Sky Sports owns the rights to the game broadcasts, and highlights are rarely shown on network television. Research from 2003 stated that the majority of spectators are from the AB1 demographic group, with a gender ratio of approximately 80% male and 20% female at live domestic professional matches. However, this is a general picture of the sport across the country as a whole, and in some parts of the country, the game has widespread grassroots support. This is particularly true of the West Country, especially in Cornwall and in the cities of Bath and Gloucester, where the game is substantially more popular. popular than football without significant class differentiation. In the Midlands, the game competes with football, and the larger clubs, such as Leicester Tigers, Northampton Saints and Coventry, have considerable fan bases and strong traditions. The national team. The English national team is currently the second best team in the history of the Six Nations Championship, with 3 titles and 1 Grand Slam. When taking into account the Home Nations and 5 Nations tournaments, England has more title and Grand Slams than any other nation. England contest the Calcutta Cup with Scotland and the Millennium Trophy with Ireland as part of the Six Nations Championship. They were world champions from 2003 to 2007 and also made the finals of the 1991 and 2007 World Cups. World Rugby currently ranks England at 3rd out of 95 Union-playing countries. They played their home games at Twickenham in Middlesex. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is a song associated with the National Rugby Union team, even though it was originally sung by black slaves on the cotton fields in the south of the USA. Every 4 years, the British and Irish Lions go on tour with players from England as well as Ireland, Scotland and Wales.